The morning sun cast long shadows across the village square as Maya Chen wiped the sweat from her forehead. She had been working in her grandfather's antique shop since dawn, carefully cleaning centuries-old artifacts that tourists rarely bothered to buy. The small mountain village of Kumano, nestled deep in Japan's Kii Peninsula, saw few visitors these days. Most people preferred the bright lights of Tokyo or the historic temples of Kyoto. Maya's grandfather, Hiroshi Chen, sat behind the wooden counter, his weathered hands trembling slightly as he sipped his green tea. At 82 years old, he had run the shop for over 50 years, inheriting it from his own father. The Chen family had been guardians of ancient artifacts for generations, though most villagers considered their collection nothing more than dusty relics. "Maya," her grandfather called softly, his voice carrying the weight of unspoken secrets. "Come here, child. There's something I must show you." Maya set down the brass incense burner she had been polishing and walked to the counter. Her grandfather's eyes, usually warm and playful, held an unusual seriousness that made her stomach tighten with worry. "What is it, grandfather?" she asked, kneeling beside his chair. Hiroshi reached beneath the counter and pulled out an old leather journal, its pages yellow with age. "Tomorrow marks your 18th birthday," he said, running his fingers over the worn cover. "In our family, this age carries special meaning." Maya had heard whispers about family traditions, but her parents had died when she was young, leaving her in her grandfather's care. He had raised her with love, but had always been strangely secretive about certain aspects of their heritage. "For centuries," Hiroshi continued, opening the journal to reveal pages covered in ancient Japanese script, "the Chen family has protected something extraordinary, something that most believe exists only in legend." He stood slowly, gesturing for Maya to follow him to the back of the shop. They passed through a doorway hidden behind a silk tapestry, entering a storage room Maya had been forbidden to explore as a child. Dust particles danced in the dim light filtering through a small window. "Help me move this," Hiroshi said, pointing to a large wooden cabinet against the far wall. Together they pushed the heavy furniture aside, revealing a hidden door in the floorboards. Hiroshi knelt with difficulty and lifted the concealed panel, exposing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. "I'm getting too old for these stairs," he muttered, producing a flashlight from his pocket. "Stay close." The underground chamber smelled of earth and ancient incense. As they reached the bottom, Hiroshi switched on a single overhead bulb, illuminating a circular room carved from solid rock. The walls bore intricate symbols and patterns that seemed to shift in the flickering light. But it was the center of the room that stole Maya's breath away. Standing on a raised stone platform was a suit of armor unlike anything she had ever seen. It appeared to be made of a dark metal that absorbed light rather than reflecting it, with veins of silver running through the plates like living mercury. The armor was clearly designed for a woman, with elegant curves and proportions that spoke of both beauty and deadly purpose. "The Kuroi Yoroi," Hiroshi whispered, using the ancient name. "The black armor. It has waited here for over 1,000 years." Maya approached slowly, mesmerized by the way the silver veins seemed to pulse with their own inner light. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "But why show me this now?" "Because you are the first woman born to our bloodline in 3 generations, her grandfather explained. "The armor chooses its own guardian, and it has always chosen women. Your grandmother tried to claim it, as did her mother before her, but the armor remained silent." He pulled a scroll from a hidden compartment in the wall and unrolled it carefully. "According to our family records, the armor was created by a master craftsman named Takeshi during the Heian period. He infused it with something beyond normal metallurgy. Some say it was blessed by the kami, others believe it holds the essence of a fallen star." Maya listened, but her attention kept returning to the armor. She felt a strange pull, as if invisible threads connected her to the ancient metal. What does it do? No one knows for certain, Hiroshi admitted. The last woman to successfully wear it was your ancestor Mei Chen, over 300 years ago. She wrote only that the armor opened doors that should remain closed, and showed truths better left hidden. After her death, the family vowed to protect it, but never to use it. Then why tell me about it? Her grandfather's expression grew troubled. Because strange things have been happening. Maya, researchers from Tokyo have been asking questions about our family. Foreign collectors have offered astronomical sums for our worthless antiques. And last week, he paused, choosing his words carefully. Last week, I saw men in black suits watching our shop. They had an aura about them that made my blood run cold. Maya felt a chill despite the warm air in the chamber. You think they know about the armor? I fear someone has discovered our secret. Hiroshi nodded gravely. The armor must be protected, but I am too old and weak. It falls to you now, Maya. You must decide whether to accept this responsibility. She looked at the armor again, and for a moment she could have sworn the silver veins brightened in response to her gaze. What if I'm not strong enough? Strength comes in many forms, her grandfather said gently. Your mother was one of the strongest people I knew, and she never raised a hand in anger. You have her spirit, Maya. Trust in that. They returned to the shop in silence, each lost in thought. Maya spent the rest of the day distracted, dropping items and miscounting change. Her mind kept wandering to the hidden chamber and its impossible occupant. That night she lay awake staring at the ceiling, her thoughts churning. The rational part of her mind insisted that armor couldn't possibly have mystical properties. She was a modern girl who had grown up with smartphones and social media. Magic belonged in manga and anime, not in real life. But another part of her, a deeper instinct she couldn't name, whispered that some truths transcended logic. Her grandmother had left Japan to marry her grandfather, a Chinese scholar studying ancient texts in Kyoto. Their union had been scandalous at the time, but they had loved each other deeply. Maya wondered if her grandmother had sensed something special about the Chen bloodline, something that drew her across cultural boundaries. The next morning, her birthday, dawned gray and overcast. Maya woke to find her grandfather already in the shop, speaking urgently with a customer. As she dressed and came downstairs, she froze at the sight of the visitor. He was tall for a Japanese man, wearing an expensive black suit that seemed to absorb the morning light. His hair was perfectly styled, and his shoes gleamed with military precision. But it was his eyes that made Maya's skin crawl, cold, calculating, and utterly without warmth. Ah, this must be your granddaughter, the man said, his smile never reaching those dead eyes. Maya Chen, I presume. I am Mr. Yamamoto from the Ministry of Cultural Affairs. We've received reports that your family may be in possession of items of significant historical value. Our permits are all in order, Hiroshi said stiffly. We have been licensed antiquities dealers for generations. Of course, Yamamoto waved dismissively. But you understand, we must investigate all claims. Perhaps you would be so kind as to show me your inventory. I'm particularly interested in anything from the Heian period. Maya saw her grandfather's hands tighten on his walking stick. Our Heian pieces are well documented, mostly pottery and household items of little significance. Nevertheless, I must insist, Yamamoto's voice hardened slightly. It would be unfortunate if we had to return with a full investigation team. The threat hung in the air like a blade. Maya stepped forward, surprising herself with her boldness. Our records are in the back office, she said smoothly, but they're quite extensive. Perhaps you could return tomorrow when we've had time to organize them properly. Yamamoto's gaze fixed on her with laser intensity. You seem very protective of your grandfather's business, Miss Chen. One might wonder what you're trying to hide. Nothing at all, Maya replied, meeting his stare without flinching. We simply prefer to do things properly. Surely the ministry appreciates thoroughness. For a long moment, they faced each other in silent challenge. Then Yamamoto smiled, a cold expression that made Maya think of a snake preparing to strike. Very well. I shall return tomorrow at precisely 10 o'clock. Please ensure everything is ready for inspection. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, and Miss Chen, happy birthday. 18 is such a significant age, isn't it? So many possibilities ahead of you. The door chimed as he left, but the chill of his presence remained. Hiroshi sank into his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 82 years. He knows, the old man whispered. Somehow he knows. Grandfather, who was that really? Maya demanded. No government official carries himself like that. Hiroshi shook his head slowly. I don't know, but he's dangerous. Maya, you must... He stopped, coughing violently. When he pulled his handkerchief away from his mouth, Maya saw spots of blood on the white cloth. Grandfather! She rushed to his side, but he waved her away. Listen to me, he gasped between coughs. There's no more time. You must go to the chamber tonight. The armor, it's the only thing that can protect you now. We should go to the police, Maya protested. Or leave town until... No! Hiroshi gripped her arm with surprising strength. Running would only delay the inevitable. That man, whoever he truly is, will not stop until he has what he seeks. The armor has remained hidden for centuries because our family understood patience and duty. Now our time of watching has ended. He pulled out a small key on a silk cord and pressed it into her hand. This opens a box in the chamber. Inside, you'll find your ancestor May's final journal. Read it, then decide what you must do. The rest of the day passed in tense preparation. Hiroshi closed the shop early. Something he had never done in all the years Maya could remember. They ate a quiet dinner of her favorite dishes. He had somehow found time to cook despite everything. And he gave her a simple silver pendant that had belonged to her mother. She would be proud of you, he said softly. As am I. That night, after ensuring her grandfather was sleeping peacefully, Maya crept down to the hidden chamber. The armor stood as before, silent and waiting. She found the box her grandfather had mentioned hidden beneath the platform. Inside lay a slim journal bound in midnight blue silk. Mei Chen's handwriting was delicate but clear, even after 3 centuries. Maya sat cross-legged on the cold floor and began to read by flashlight. To my descendant who finds these words, the journal began, know that you stand at a crossroads. The armor you see before you is both blessing and curse, power and responsibility. I wore it only 3 times in my life, and each time it showed me wonders and horrors beyond description. The journal went on to describe visions of other worlds, glimpses of possible futures, and the terrible knowledge that humanity stood always on the precipice of greatness or destruction. But what caught Maya's attention most was a passage near the end. The armor does not grant strength to the body but to the spirit. It amplifies what already exists within the wearer. Courage becomes unbreakable will, compassion becomes healing light, and yes, darkness becomes consuming shadow. Choose carefully who you are before you choose to wear it. Maya closed the journal and stared at the armor. Tomorrow, Yamamoto would return, and she sensed he would not accept any more delays. Her grandfather was old and frail, unable to protect their secret much longer. The weight of centuries pressed down on her shoulders. She stood slowly and approached the armor. Up close, she could see that the metal plates were inscribed with microscopic symbols that hurt to look at directly. The silver veins definitely pulsed now, matching the rhythm of her heartbeat. I don't know if I'm worthy, she whispered to the empty air. I'm just a girl who sells antiques in a forgotten village. I've never been special or brave or any of the things a guardian should be." The armor remained silent, but Maya felt a warmth spreading through her chest. Not from the armor, she realized, but from within herself. She thought of her grandfather's sacrifice, of all the generations who had protected this secret, of her mother who had died too young but had faced her illness with grace and courage. "But I'm the only one left," she continued, her voice growing stronger. "And sometimes that has to be enough." She reached out and touched the breastplate. The metal was warm despite the cool air, and at her touch, the silver veins flared with brilliant light. The symbols on the walls began to glow in response, filling the chamber with an otherworldly radiance. Maya felt a presence, ancient and patient, brushing against her mind. It didn't speak in words, but in impressions, questioning, evaluating, measuring. She stood firm, opening her thoughts and letting it see who she truly was. Not a warrior or a sage, but a young woman who had learned duty from her grandfather, love from her parents' memory, and courage from necessity. The presence withdrew, and the light faded to its previous dim glow. But something had changed. The armor no longer seemed like a relic, but like a waiting friend. Maya returned to her room as dawn approached, her mind made up. When Yamamoto came, she would face him. Not as the scared girl she had been yesterday, but as the guardian she was choosing to become. She didn't know what the armor would do when she put it on or what price it might demand. But she knew that some things were worth protecting, some secrets worth keeping, and some stands worth taking. Tomorrow would bring challenges she couldn't imagine. But tonight, on the cusp of her 18th birthday, Maya Chen accepted her inheritance and stepped into a destiny 1,000 years in the making. The armor waited below, patient as stone and ready as a blade. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the village, forces were moving that would test the bonds between past and present, legend and reality, duty and desire. The girl who had spent her life selling antiques was about to discover that some artifacts were never meant to gather dust. Some were meant to change the world. As she finally drifted off to sleep, Maya's last thought was of the silver veins pulsing with life and purpose. Whatever came next, she would meet it head-on. The Chen family had guarded their secret in silence for centuries. Now it was time to see what that secret could do when brought into the light. The morning arrived with unseasonable cold, frost crystallizing on the windows of the antique shop. Maya had slept fitfully. Her dreams filled with silver veins of light and whispered words in languages she didn't recognize. She woke to find her grandfather already downstairs, moving through the shop with grim determination. "He's early," Hiroshi said without preamble as Maya entered. Through the window, she could see Yamamoto standing across the street, smoking a cigarette with mechanical precision. He wasn't alone. 2 more men in identical black suits flanked him, their faces hidden behind dark sunglasses despite the overcast sky. "Grandfather, maybe we should—" Maya began, but he cut her off with a sharp gesture. "No more running, no more hiding," he said firmly. "The Chen family has kept its vigil for 40 generations. Today that vigil ends one way or another." Maya nodded, squaring her shoulders. She had made her decision in the pre-dawn darkness, and she wouldn't falter now. "What do you need me to do?" "When they come in, I'll handle the talking," Hiroshi instructed. "You slip away to the chamber. Whatever happens, the armor must not fall into their hands." The shop's door chime had never sounded more ominous than when Yamamoto entered at precisely 10 o'clock. His companions remained outside, but their presence was felt like a weight in the air. "Mr. Chen," Yamamoto said pleasantly, though his smile was sharp as winter frost. "I trust you've had time to prepare your inventory?" "Indeed," Hiroshi replied, gesturing to a stack of ledgers on the counter. "Every item is documented here, with photographs and acquisition records dating back to—" That won't be necessary, Yamamoto interrupted, his facade of politeness dropping like a discarded mask. We both know what I've come for. The Kuroi Yoroi. The black armor of legend. Maya's breath caught, but her grandfather's expression didn't change. I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about. We deal in historical artifacts, not fairy tales. Yamamoto laughed, a sound like grinding glass. Please, Mr. Chen, did you think we hadn't noticed the patterns? The Chen family, always in the antiquities trade, always in this exact location for centuries, never growing wealthy despite handling priceless artifacts, never leaving despite better opportunities elsewhere. You're guardians, not merchants. He pulled out a tablet and showed them a thermal imaging scan. The hidden chamber below glowed like a beacon, its unique construction clearly visible. Modern technology makes old secrets difficult to keep. We know the armor is here. The question is whether you'll surrender it willingly or otherwise. And who exactly is we? Hiroshi asked, his voice steady despite the threat. Does it matter? Yamamoto shrugged. Government agencies, private collectors, international consortiums, everyone wants the armor. I simply happened to find you first. Now then, shall we discuss terms? There's nothing to discuss. Maya stepped forward, unable to stay silent any longer. Even if this armor existed, what makes you think it would work for you? Legends say it chooses its bearer. Yamamoto's dead eyes fixed on her with predatory interest. Ah, yes, the choosing. How convenient that ancient artifacts always seem to have built-in selectivity. But you see, Miss Chen, we live in an age of science. Whatever properties the armor possesses can be studied, replicated, mass-produced. Imagine, an army equipped with armor that grants superhuman abilities. The nation that controls such technology would be unstoppable. Is that what you think it does? Maya laughed, surprising herself with the scorn in her voice. Grant superhuman abilities like some video game power-up? What else could it do? Yamamoto seemed genuinely curious now. The historical accounts speak of warriors accomplishing impossible feats, moving like shadows, striking with the force of earthquakes. If not physical enhancement, then what? Maya opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. How could she explain visions of other worlds and expanded consciousness to a man who saw only weapons and power? How could she describe the weight of truth and responsibility to someone who dealt in lies and theft? Enough games, Yamamoto snapped, his patience exhausted. He pulled out his phone and spoke a single word. The two men outside entered immediately, their movements too fluid and coordinated to be entirely human. Search the building. Find the entrance to the lower chamber. No! Hiroshi moved to block them, but one of the men shoved him aside with casual force. The old man fell hard, crying out as his hips struck the floor. Grandfather! Maya rushed to his side, cradling his head in her lap. He was conscious but grimacing in pain, his breathing shallow and rapid. Go, he whispered urgently. Go now! Yamamoto watched impassively as his men began pulling books from shelves and overturning furniture. This could have been civilized, Mr. Chen. The suffering is entirely your fault. Rage flooded through Maya, hot and pure. She stood slowly, helping her grandfather lean against the wall, then turned to face Yamamoto. You want to see the armor? Fine. But know that whatever happens next is on your head. She walked to the hidden door, no longer caring about keeping its location secret. The men had already found the edges of the panel anyway. She pressed the concealed catch and pulled it open, revealing the stairs. Excellent, Yamamoto purred. After you, Miss Chen. They descended into the chamber, Yamamoto and his men following closely. The armor stood on its platform, somehow managing to look both ancient and immediate, patient and ready. The silver veins pulsed faster as Maya approached, responding to her emotional state. Magnificent, Yamamoto breathed, his usual composure cracking to reveal genuine awe. "Even more beautiful than the texts suggested," he gestured to his men. "Remove it carefully. We'll need a specialized transport." "No," Maya said quietly, stepping between them and the armor. "I told you upstairs. The armor chooses its bearer, and it chooses me." Yamamoto's expression hardened. "Stand aside, girl. You have no idea what forces you're interfering with." "Neither do you," Maya countered. She turned to face the armor, her heart pounding. She had no idea if this would work, if the armor would accept her in a moment of crisis, as it had seemed to during her midnight visit. But she had to try. She reached for the breastplate, and Yamamoto's men moved to stop her. They were fast, faster than normal humans should be. But Maya's hands found the armor first. The moment her skin made contact with the metal, the world exploded into light and sensation. The silver veins erupted with brilliance that filled the chamber, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. Maya felt the armor responding to her touch, not just acknowledging her but welcoming her, embracing her. The metal began to move. Like liquid mercury given form and purpose, the armor flowed off its stand and onto Maya's body. She gasped as pieces configured themselves around her, each plate finding its perfect position without her conscious direction. The metal was warm against her skin, pulsing with an energy that felt both foreign and familiar. "Impossible," Yamamoto whispered, his face pale with shock and something that might have been fear. But the transformation was only beginning. As the armor settled into place, Maya felt her consciousness expanding. The chamber around her became transparent, revealing layers of reality she had never imagined. She could see the energy flowing through the building's electrical system, the heat signatures of the men around her, and something else. Dark tendrils of power emanating from Yamamoto and his companions that marked them as something other than entirely human. "Enhanced humans," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before. "You've already been experimenting with augmentation. That's how you knew to look for the armor." Yamamoto recovered his composure enough to sneer. "The first generation of improvements, yes. But crude work compared to what that armor represents. Surrender it now, and I might let you and your grandfather live." Maya laughed, and the sound echoed strangely in the chamber, as if reflected through dimensions beyond the merely physical. "You still don't understand. The armor isn't a weapon. It's a key." She raised her hand, and the symbols on the walls flared to life. But now she could read them, understanding flowing directly into her mind. They told the story of the armor's creation, of the master craftsman who had captured a fragment of cosmic truth and bound it into metal and purpose. "A key to what?" Yamamoto demanded, but she could hear the uncertainty in his voice. "To seeing things as they truly are," Maya replied. She looked at him with eyes that now perceived across spectrums, visible and invisible. "You're not human anymore. None of you are. You've traded your humanity for power, and something else is wearing your skins." The two men beside Yamamoto twitched at her words, their human facades rippling like disturbed water. For a moment, she caught a glimpse of what lay beneath. Writhing shadows with too many teeth and eyes that burned with alien hunger. "Clever girl," Yamamoto said, his pleasant mask finally discarded entirely. His form began to shift and blur, revealing the creature he had become. "But seeing the truth and surviving it are two different things." He lunged at her with inhuman speed, his fingers extending into claws that could shred steel. His men followed, their disguises falling away to reveal the monstrous entities they had become. Time seemed to slow as Maya moved. The armor didn't make her stronger or faster in the conventional sense. Instead, it showed her the optimal path through each moment, the perfect angle to deflect each attack, the precise pressure point to disable each opponent. She danced between their strikes like water flowing around stones, untouchable and fluid. But she quickly realized that simply avoiding their attacks wouldn't be enough. These creatures were relentless, and she could hear her grandfather's labored breathing from the stairway above. She needed to end this. The armor pulsed, and new knowledge flooded her mind. Not techniques of violence, but understanding of harmony and disruption. These creatures existed by violating natural law, forcing themselves into shapes that reality rejected. All she had to do was remind the universe of how things should be. She placed her palm on the chest of the nearest creature as it rushed her. Light erupted from the point of contact. Not the silver of the armor's veins, but pure white radiance that carried the weight of truth. The creature shrieked as its stolen form unraveled, the shadows that composed it dispersing like smoke before a hurricane. "No!" Yamamoto roared, his monstrous form fully revealed now, a writhing mass of darkness and hunger wrapped around a core of corrupted ambition. "That armor belongs to us. The power to reshape reality belongs to those strong enough to take it." "Power isn't taken," Maya said calmly, turning to face him. "It's earned. And you've earned nothing but dissolution." She spread her arms wide, and the armor responded. The silver veins erupted with light that filled the chamber, then expanded beyond it. She could feel the light racing through the building, up through the floors, out into the village. Wherever it touched, lies became truth. Shadows fled, and the natural order reasserted itself. Yamamoto tried to flee, but there was nowhere to run from the truth. The light caught him at the threshold, and his scream shook dust from the ceiling as his unnatural existence came undone. In moments, only empty clothes remained where he and his companions had stood. Maya stood in the center of the chamber, breathing hard. The armor still hummed with power, but she could feel the cost of what she had just done. Using the armor's full capabilities drained something vital from the world around it, like a plant drawing nutrients from soil. Too much use would leave reality itself barren. "Maya?" Her grandfather's voice came from the stairway, weak but wondering. She rushed to him, the armor moving with her like a second skin. He stared at her with wide eyes, taking in the dark metal and pulsing silver veins. "Grandfather, I'm sorry. I had to—" He raised a trembling hand to touch the armor's surface, and his face broke into a smile of profound relief. "No, child, I'm the one who should apologize. I spent so long protecting the secret that I forgot to prepare you for the truth. But you understood instinctively what took me decades to learn." "What do you mean?" Maya knelt beside him, careful not to let the armor's edges cut him. "The armor isn't about power," he explained, his voice growing stronger. "It's about perception, about seeing the world as it truly is, and having the courage to act on that knowledge. The creatures that wore those men's faces, they've been infiltrating our world for years, maybe decades. But no one could see them for what they were. Until now," Maya finished, understanding dawning. "The armor doesn't just show the truth to its wearer. When activated fully, it reveals truth to the world." "Exactly." Hiroshi winced as he tried to sit up straighter. "Your ancestor May understood this, but the world of her time wasn't ready. Too much revelation too quickly would have shattered the foundations of society. So she hid the armor away, waiting for a time when humanity could handle the truth." "Is that time now?" Maya asked, suddenly feeling the weight of responsibility settling on her armored shoulders. "I don't know," her grandfather admitted, "but those creatures found us, which means they'll find others. Other artifacts, other guardians, other sources of power. Someone needs to stop them, and the armor has chosen you for that task." Maya helped him to his feet, noting how the armor automatically adjusted its movements to support his weight without harming him. They made their way slowly up the stairs, emerging into a shop that looked like a typhoon had struck it. But outside the windows, the village looked different. Clearer somehow, as if a veil had been lifted. People walked past with confusion on their faces, blinking as if waking from a long dream. Birds that had been silent for months suddenly burst into song. "The light," Maya whispered. "It cleansed more than just those creatures." "The beginning of a greater cleansing," Hiroshi agreed, "but also a declaration of war. The entities that created those things won't ignore what happened here. They'll send more agents, stronger ones, to reclaim what they see as theirs." Maya looked down at the armor encasing her body. She could feel its systems humming with readiness, its vast potential barely tapped. But she also felt the responsibility that came with it, the duty to use this power wisely to reveal truth without destroying the world in the process. "Then I need to be ready," she said firmly. "I need to understand everything about the armor, about these creatures, about the real history of our family." Her grandfather smiled proudly. "There are others like us scattered across the world, guardians of different artifacts, keepers of various truths. The armor will help you find them. Together you might stand a chance against what's coming. And if we fail? Then humanity falls into darkness, controlled by entities that feed on lies and suffering." His expression was grave, but not hopeless. "But you won't fail, Maya. The armor chose you, and it has never chosen wrong." A car screeched to a halt outside the shop. Through the window, Maya could see men and women in military uniforms emerging, their faces tense with alertness. But these were human faces, she could tell with her enhanced perception. Frightened humans responding to an event they didn't understand. "The authorities," Hiroshi murmured. "The energy discharge must have registered on their instruments. You need to go." "I can't leave you." "You must," he insisted. "They won't find the chamber. The armor's activation sealed it permanently. And I'm just an old man with a broken hip. But you're something new now. Something they won't understand and will try to control." Maya felt tears running down her face, hot against the cool metal of the armor. "Where will I go?" "South," her grandfather said immediately. "To Okinawa. Find the Tamaki family shrine. Show them the armor and tell them the vigil has ended. They'll know what to do." The soldiers were approaching the door. Maya hugged her grandfather carefully, the armor somehow knowing to retract its hardest edges to avoid hurting him. "I love you," she whispered. "And I love you, guardian of truth," he replied. "Now go. Run like the wind and trust the armor to guide you." Maya slipped out the back door as the soldiers entered the front. The armor responded to her need for stealth, its surface shifting to bend light around her, making her difficult to see. She ran through the village streets, past confused residents and agitated animals, toward the forest paths she had explored as a child. Behind her, she heard shouts and radio chatter as the authorities discovered the empty clothes and the destroyed shop. They would have questions her grandfather couldn't answer, mysteries that would frustrate them for years to come. But Maya was already gone, moving through the trees with grace she had never possessed before. The armor guided her steps, showing her paths she had never noticed, revealing shortcuts through space that shouldn't have existed. As she ran, she felt the armor integrating more fully with her body and mind. Information flowed into her consciousness, maps of Japan with marked locations, names and faces of potential allies, warnings about entities that hunted in the shadows between reality. She had thought her life would be spent selling antiques in a quiet village, preserving the past for tourists who didn't really care. Instead, she had become something out of legend, a warrior against forces that threatened the very nature of truth itself. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, she felt a strange exhilaration. All her life, she had sensed that the world was not quite what it seemed, that secrets lurked beneath the mundane surface. Now she knew she had been right, and she had the tools to do something about it. The armor pulsed with warmth, responding to her determination. Together, they would find the other guardians. Together, they would face whatever came from the shadows. And together, they would ensure that humanity had a chance to see the truth and choose its own destiny. Behind her, the village of Kumano slowly returned to normal, though some residents would speak for years afterward about the day when silver light had flooded the streets, and for just a moment they had seen the world as it truly was. And in an antique shop, an old man faced his interrogators with a serene smile, knowing that his granddaughter had stepped into legend and that the long vigil of the Chen family had finally borne fruit. The girl they had laughed at for claiming she could wear the legendary armor was gone. In her place ran a guardian of truth, racing toward a destiny that would reshape the world. The journey to Okinawa took Maya 3 days, though it should have taken much longer. The armor showed her paths that existed in the spaces between moments, roads that only appeared when no one was looking, and shortcuts through reality that left her dizzy with their impossibility. She moved mostly at night, when the darkness helped hide the armor's silver veins from casual observers. On the morning of the 4th day, she stood before the Tamaki family shrine on a hill overlooking the East China Sea. The structure was ancient, but well-maintained, its wooden beams worn smooth by centuries of wind and rain. Cherry blossoms bloomed out of season around the grounds, their pink petals falling like snow in the warm breeze. An elderly woman in traditional shrine maiden attire was sweeping the stone path. She looked up as Maya approached, and her eyes widened at the sight of the armor. "So," the woman said softly, setting aside her broom, "the vigil has ended at last." She bowed deeply. "I am Tamaki Yuki, keeper of this shrine. We have waited for you for a very long time." Maya returned the bow, the armor moving smoothly with her gesture. "My grandfather, Hiroshi Chen, sent me. He said you would know what to do." Yuki smiled, an expression both sad and relieved. "Hiroshi-san still lives? That is good. Come, we have much to discuss and little time to do it." She led Maya into the shrine's inner sanctum, a room that hummed with the same type of energy Maya had felt in her family's hidden chamber. The walls were covered with maps and photographs, red strings connecting various points like a conspiracy theorist's dream board. But Maya's enhanced perception showed her these connections were real, lines of power crisscrossing the globe, marking places where reality was thin and truth struggled against deception. "The enemy has been moving faster lately," Yuki explained, pouring tea with steady hands despite her age. "What you encountered in Kumano was just a scouting party. The real invasion is already underway." "Invasion?" Maya accepted the tea gratefully, the armor somehow allowing her to drink without removing the helmet. "From where?" "From the spaces between," Yuki said grimly. "The entities you destroyed were once human, but they made bargains with things from outside our reality. They traded their humanity for power, becoming doorways for creatures that should never exist in our world." She moved to the map, pointing to various marked locations. Paris, New York, Mumbai, Cairo, in every major city, these hybrid beings have established themselves in positions of power. They feed on human suffering and chaos, growing stronger with each lie believed, each truth suppressed. Maya studied the map, her enhanced vision revealing patterns within patterns. "But there are other marks, green ones." "The Guardians," Yuki confirmed. "Families like yours and mine who have protected artifacts and knowledge through the centuries. Most don't even know what they guard anymore. The secrets have been buried so deep that only instinct remains." "How many artifacts are there?" 7 major ones that we know of." Yuki moved to an ancient scroll on the wall. "Your armor of truth, the staff of harmony in Tibet, the crown of dreams in Egypt, the sword of severance in Scotland, the shield of preservation in Peru, the ring of binding in India, and..." She paused. The mirror of souls whose location has been lost for 500 years. Maya felt the armor pulse with recognition at each name. They're connected somehow. I can feel it. Created by the same master craftsman, or perhaps by a group working in concert, Yuki agreed. Each artifact enhances a different aspect of human potential. Together, they were meant to form a perfect defense against incursions from outside reality. But they were scattered. The guardians of old feared what would happen if all seven were brought together. Yuki's expression was troubled. Power corrupts, even power meant for protection. They thought it better to hide the artifacts separately, to wait until humanity was ready. My grandfather said the same thing, but are we ready now? Before Yuki could answer, the air in the shrine suddenly turned cold. The cherry blossoms outside stopped their gentle fall, frozen in mid-air. Maya's armor flared with warning, silver veins pulsing rapidly. "They've found us," Yuki whispered, her face pale. "I thought we would have more time." The shrine doors burst inward and creatures poured through, not the shadow-wrapped humans Maya had faced before, but beings of pure otherness. They moved like liquid given malevolent form, their shapes constantly shifting between states that hurt to perceive directly. Where they touched the floor, wood aged and cracked, reality itself recoiling from their presence. Maya moved without thinking, the armor guiding her actions. She struck the first creature with an open palm, light erupting from the contact. But these beings were stronger than their hybrid servants. Instead of dissolving, the creature merely recoiled, hissing with a sound like tearing metal. "The Pure Ones!" Yuki gasped, backing against the wall. "They've stopped sending proxies!" More creatures flooded in, surrounding them. Maya fought with every technique the armor revealed to her, her movements a deadly dance of light and precision. But for every creature she drove back, two more took its place. They were testing her, she realized, learning her capabilities. Then, just as despair began to creep in, Maya heard it, a deep thrumming sound like a giant bell being struck. One of the creatures exploded into nothingness, and through the doorway stepped a figure in flowing robes, carrying a staff that glowed with inner fire. "Did someone call for harmony?" the newcomer asked in accented English, spinning the staff to create a barrier of light that the creatures couldn't cross. He was young, perhaps 25, with the features of a Tibetan monk, but eyes that held depths of experience. The staff in his hands pulsed with warm, golden light that complemented the silver of Maya's armor. "The Staff of Harmony," Maya breathed. "And you must be the armor-bearer." The monk grinned, though his eyes never left the creatures pressing against his barrier. "I'm Tenzin. I felt your activation all the way in Lhasa. My teacher said it was time to stop hiding." Together they fought with a synchronization that should have taken years to develop. Where Maya's armor revealed truth, Tenzin's staff imposed order. The creatures found themselves unable to maintain their chaotic forms, forced into shapes that could be fought and defeated. But even with their combined strength, the battle was far from won. The creatures kept coming, and Maya could feel both artifacts beginning to strain. They needed more help. As if in answer to her thoughts, the air shimmered near the shrine's altar. A woman materialized from nothing, wearing a crown that seemed to be made of condensed starlight. She was tall and dark-skinned, with the bearing of royalty and eyes that held the depth of eternity. "The crown of dreams," Yuki whispered in awe. "I am Amara," the woman announced, raising her hand. Reality rippled around her, and suddenly the creatures found themselves fighting phantom versions of themselves, dreams given deadly substance. "The sleepers in Cairo have awakened. The old bloodlines remember their purpose." With three artifacts working in concert, the tide of battle turned. Maya provided clarity of vision, Tenzin imposed structure on chaos, and Amara turned the enemy's own darkness against them. The creatures retreated, flowing back through the doorways and disappearing into whatever void had spawned them. In the sudden silence that followed, the three artifact bearers looked at each other with a mixture of wonder and wariness. They had worked together perfectly, but they were still strangers bound by circumstance. "This is just the beginning," Amara said, her crown dimming to a faint glow. "They know we're active now. The real assault will come soon." "Then we need the others," Tenzin said firmly. "All 7 artifacts, united as they were meant to be." Maya felt the armor's agreement, but also its warning. The original Guardians scattered them for a reason. What if bringing them together causes more harm than good? What if not bringing them together ensures our defeat? Amara countered. The enemy has evolved past what our ancestors faced. They're not just sending scouts anymore. They're opening permanent doorways between realities. Yuki, who had been silent during the battle, finally spoke. "There is a prophecy, spoken by the first keeper of this shrine. When shadows walk in daylight and truth becomes lie, the 7 shall unite or all shall die. But beware the 8th that hides behind the light, for salvation and doom are separated by a single choice made right." "The 8th? Maya frowned. "But there are only 7 artifacts." "That we know of," Yuki corrected. "The prophecy has never been wrong, but its meaning often becomes clear only in hindsight." Over the following days, the 3 bearers used their combined abilities to locate the others. The Shield of Preservation was held by a family in the Andes, its young bearer named Carlos, already fighting off attacks from shadow creatures. The Sword of Severance had been passed down through a Scottish clan, its current wielder, Moira, using it to cut the connections between the invaders and their human hosts. Finding the Ring of Binding proved more difficult. Its guardian lineage had been broken, the artifact lost in the chaos of the partition of India. But Amara's crown revealed it in dreams, hidden in a Mumbai slum, protected not by a single family, but by an entire community who didn't fully understand what they guarded, but knew it was important. The ring's new bearer was a street child named Raj, no more than 16, who had touched the artifact by accident while hiding from police. The ring had chosen him, granting him the power to bind the shadow creatures in place, preventing them from shifting between dimensions. 6 of the 7 were gathered at the Tamaki shrine, their artifacts creating an aurora of light that could be seen for miles. Each bearer brought news of increasing attacks, of world leaders acting strangely, of reality itself becoming unstable in major population centers. "We need the mirror," Moira stated bluntly, her Scottish accent thick with frustration. 6 artifacts aren't enough. The invasions are accelerating. "But no one has seen the mirror for centuries," Carlos protested. "How do we find something that might not even exist anymore?" Maya closed her eyes, letting the armor's consciousness merge more fully with her own. Since putting it on, she had been holding back, afraid of losing herself in its vast awareness. But now she understood that was exactly what she needed to do. "I know where it is," she said quietly, opening her eyes. The others stared at her, seeing the silver light that now glowed behind her pupils. "The armor remembers. All the artifacts remember their siblings." The knowledge flowed through her like a river of light. "Mount Fuji. There's a cave system beneath the mountain sealed centuries ago. The mirror's guardian didn't hide it from the world. They hid themselves with it, entering a state of suspended existence to wait for this moment. That's why we could never find it," Yuki breathed. "The guardian and artifact became one, existing outside normal time. They moved as a group, their combined powers making conventional travel unnecessary. Amara wrapped them in a dream of movement. Tenzin harmonized their passage with reality, and Maya guided them along paths of truth. In moments, they stood at the base of Mount Fuji, before a rock face that looked completely solid. But Maya could see the truth. She pressed her hand against what appeared to be stone, and it rippled like water. "The seal recognizes the artifacts. We can enter." The cave system beyond was vast and crystalline, every surface reflecting their images in infinite recursion. At the center, in a chamber of perfect mirrors, sat a figure in meditation. The person was ageless, androgynous, their features constantly shifting between male and female, young and old, as if they contained all possibilities within themselves. The mirror of souls rested in their lap, a simple disk of polished metal that nonetheless seemed to contain infinite depth. As the six bearers approached, the figure's eyes opened, revealing irises that reflected not their appearance, but their very essence. "You have come at last," they said, their voice carrying harmonics of every person who had ever lived. "I am Akira, though I have been also called by 1,000 other names. I am the guardian who chose to become one with their charge, rather than risk its loss." They stood smoothly despite centuries of stillness. The mirror of souls shows not just truth, but potential. What you are, what you were, what you might become. It is the most dangerous of the seven, for nothing breaks a person faster than seeing their own soul laid bare. "We need it," Maya said simply. "The invasion has already begun," "Yes," Akira interrupted. "I have watched through the mirror. The entities from outside have established beachheads in 12 major cities. Within days, they will have enough presence to begin reshaping reality to their liking. Humanity will become cattle for their feeding, forever trapped in a nightmare of their own suffering." "Then join us," Tenzin urged. 7 artifacts united can stop them." Akira studied each of them in turn, the mirror pulsing with each gaze. 6 brave souls who chose to bear terrible responsibility. But are you ready for what unity brings? The artifacts were separated because together they grant power that could reshape existence itself. The temptation to fix everything, to force the world into your vision of perfection, will be overwhelming. "We don't have a choice," Amara stated firmly. "The alternative is the end of human freedom." "There is always a choice," Akira corrected gently. "But yes, the alternatives are grim. Very well, let us see if humanity has grown wise enough to wield the power of gods without becoming devils." They joined hands in a circle, each artifact bearer allowing their power to flow freely for the first time. The cave erupted with light, silver from Maya's armor, gold from Tenzin's staff, starlight from Amara's crown, earthen brown from Carlos's shield, steel blue from Moira's sword, burning orange from Raj's ring, and a pure white radiance from Akira's mirror. The energies swirled and merged, creating something greater than their sum. Maya felt her consciousness expand beyond anything she had experienced before. She wasn't just seeing truth now, she was becoming it. The others were with her, their minds linked through the artifacts into a gestalt being of incredible power. Through their combined awareness, they could perceive the entire invasion at once. Thousands of entities spreading through human civilization like a virus, converting or consuming anyone who stood in their way. The scope of it was staggering, far worse than any of them had imagined. But they could also see the solution. The artifacts together formed a web of protection that could encompass the entire planet. Not a barrier that would keep the entities out, but a field that would force them to exist according to Earth's natural laws. Stripped of their ability to defy reality, they would become vulnerable. "It will take everything we have," Akira warned, their voice echoing in the shared consciousness. "And we must be perfectly synchronized. One moment of doubt, one flicker of selfish desire, and the backlash will destroy us all." "Together," Maya said, and the word carried the weight of absolute commitment. The others echoed her, their combined will focused on a single purpose. They reached out with their merged power, touching every place where the entities had taken hold. Paris, where shadow creatures wore the faces of politicians and twisted policy into weapons of despair. New York, where beings of chaos fed on the city's frenetic energy and turned it to madness. Mumbai, Cairo, London, Beijing. In every infected location, the light of the 7 artifacts began to shine. The entities fought back with fury born of desperation. They threw every horror at their disposal against the barrier of light, summoning nightmares from the spaces between stars. For a moment that lasted eternity, the outcome hung in balance. Then Maya remembered her grandfather's words. Strength comes in many forms. This wasn't about overpowering the enemy. It was about showing them a truth so fundamental that even beings from outside reality couldn't deny it. Look, she commanded through the armor, and the mirror of souls amplified her voice across dimensions. See what you have become. See what you have lost. The mirror's power touched every entity at once, showing them not their monstrous forms, but what they had been before their fall. The humans who had bargained away their souls saw the moment of their choice reflected back at them. The pure entities saw the void they had created within themselves by rejecting harmony with existence. Some fought the revelation, clinging to their corrupted power even as it destroyed them, but others, more than Maya had dared hope, saw the truth and wept. They released their hold on stolen flesh, accepting dissolution rather than continuing their parasitic existence. The invasion collapsed like a house of cards. Entities fled back to their own dimensions, sealing the doorways behind them in their haste to escape the terrible clarity of the mirror's gaze. The hybrid humans who survived found themselves free but scarred, their memories of possession driving many to madness. As the last entity vanished, the 7 artifact bearers collapsed their unity, each returning to their individual consciousness. They lay gasping in the crystal cave, their artifacts dim with exhaustion. "We did it," Raj whispered, staring at his ring in wonder. "We actually did it." "The first victory," Akira corrected gently. "The entities will return, in time. They always do. But humanity has earned a reprieve, a chance to grow stronger and wiser before the next incursion." "So we keep the artifacts united?" Carlos asked, his shield humming softly against his arm. "That would be unwise," Yuki's voice came from the cave entrance. The elderly shrine keeper had somehow found them, looking unsurprised by the devastation around her. "Power consolidated is power corrupted. You have proven that humanity can unite when necessary. That is enough." Maya understood. They had faced the temptation to use their combined might to fix every problem, reshape every injustice. Only their shared commitment to freedom had prevented them from becoming tyrants with good intentions. "We separate again," she decided, the others nodding agreement. "But we stay connected. When the darkness rises, we'll be ready." Over the following weeks, the world tried to make sense of what had happened. Governments spoke of terrorist attacks and mass hallucinations. Scientists studied energy readings they couldn't explain. But in quiet corners of the globe, people whispered about the day when light had driven out darkness, when 7 heroes had stood against impossible odds. Maya returned to Kumano to find her grandfather's shop rebuilt by grateful villagers who didn't quite understand what had happened, but knew the Chen family had protected them. Hiroshi had recovered from his injuries, though he walked with a cane now. "The armor suits you," he said simply when she arrived, the artifact now hidden beneath normal clothes but always present. "What will you do now?" "Watch," Maya replied. "Guard. Teach others to see truth for themselves. The entities will return, but maybe by then humanity won't need us to save them. Maybe they'll save themselves." Her grandfather smiled. "Spoken like a true guardian. Your parents would be proud." That night, Maya stood on the shop's roof, looking up at stars that seemed clearer than before. Across the world, 6 others were doing the same, their artifacts creating an invisible network of protection and vigilance. The girl they had laughed at for claiming the legendary armor had become something beyond their mockery or understanding. She had become a guardian of humanity's potential, a keeper of truth in a world that desperately needed it. And in the spaces between the stars, entities writhed and plotted, planning their next assault. But they moved more carefully now, knowing that Earth was no longer defenseless. The 7 artifacts had awakened, and with them, humanity's ability to stand against the darkness. The war was far from over, but for the first time in centuries, the light was winning. In her grandfather's shop, surrounded by legitimate antiques and hidden secrets, Maya Chen polished a brass Buddha and smiled. She had thought her destiny was to preserve the past. Instead, she had become the guardian of humanity's future. The armor pulsed contentedly against her skin, a constant reminder of the burden and gift she carried. Somewhere in the world, a shadow stirred, testing reality's boundaries. Maya's eyes flicked to the window, seeing beyond the normal spectrum. "Not today," she murmured, and went back to her polishing. The vigil had ended, the watch had begun, and Maya Chen, the girl who had claimed the legendary armor, stood ready for whatever came next.